I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News, here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending November the 2nd, where you had a light run of true yearlings and a heavier run of big calves weighing over 650 pounds, both headed to the feedlot. Those sold steady to $2 lower on all your feeding type cattle. Calves, steer and heifers both unevenly steady in the plains and the Midwest. That just continue, and it has for the last 2 or 3 months, just up and down here and there and everywhere. And then steer and heifer spread gets real wide, and the next week the heifers try to catch up, and it's just back and forth. But down in the southeast, where you got those order buyers sending calves out west, their market was quite a bit higher, mostly steady to $4 higher, and some more there as they had started lagging behind just a little bit. And now that we've gotten October out of the way and we're moved on to November, a lot of these backgrounders feel more comfortable with getting some of these calves in, as they think that the weather's going to moderate and temperatures won't be swinging quite so much, and we should have better weather to straighten calves up. Plus, they need to get them bought and straightened up if they're going to take them through the winter, and get them on the straight and narrow before we get any real bad adverse weather conditions. But calf prices have been real volatile for the past 2 or 3 months, and up one week and down the next, and really hard to pinpoint a good trend on them. But for the most part, prices, regional weighted averages on your 400 to 600 pound calves in your major trading areas are roughly $2 to $4 higher than they were in the late summer, after they rebounded from that kind of July drought sell-off deal. So they really haven't changed that much. They're just up and down throughout the week and from week to week, but gradually gaining a little bit of ground, and there's good demand for calves. Really, you know, a lot of guys want to take them through the winter if they've got anything at all to run them on. They're just a little bit scared because the feed's so short. Especially in the Midwest and northern plains, water is really short. Pond water is extremely short, so you got to watch that. And they just don't want to find themselves having to haul hay and water all winter long. But your wheat, it really looked good early in the season there. It come up quick and everything got green and pretty and looked really good, but we just haven't had a rain at all. And still some pretty decent looking wheat. They say around Dodge City looks pretty good, and south central Oklahoma looks pretty good, but hasn't been any moisture to speak of, and gonna really need to get some moisture on this wheat of some kind. And there's other areas in northern Oklahoma and places in Kansas that haven't had much rain at all to speak of, and they need some rain just to get the wheat up at all. But could still have a good wheat pasture year this year, but got to have some kind of rain. But you know, still these calves can bring it off a big price this week in Pratt, Kansas, at their special feeder auction on Tuesday there. Again this year, Mule Creek Ranch outside of Coldwater, Kansas, brought in their steers, and I mean, these things are right. They weaned them, you know, back in August. They've been running out. They're green. They're AI sired. They're just all the bells and whistles. The guys that have fed them before like the way they performed, and they're in a good green empty condition when they hit the sale barn. And the steers hit there this week, had a load, weighed 390 pound steers, bring $236. Big load, 120 head, weighed 461. They brought 206.50. And then had straight up 50,000 pounds of 500 pound steers. The big brothers off of them bring 188. But and they'll probably turn those steers out on wheat, but man, they need a rain to really make this wheat pop again. But most of the news this week was about Hurricane Sandy out on the East Coast, and major league destruction out there. There's not a whole lot of big cattle production out in that area. Lancaster County and surrounding areas there, they do feed several cattle. Virginia has a good feeder cattle program out there, but right along the East Coast there, not quite so much. Most of the sale barns that are in that area were closed on Tuesday. The packing plants, including the big one near Philadelphia and in northern Pennsylvania, were both closed on Tuesday, but then reopened. But some of your smaller ethnic type, and maybe more so on the sheep and goats, but your ethnic based small packing plants, and there's a lot of them in New Jersey and in New York, a lot of them are going to be closed probably for weeks and weeks and maybe months due to all the flooding and destruction that they had in that area. But the big problem for the cattle market is when those gridlock comes in on those big, heavy populated cities like New York and in that area, and people aren't able to get to the restaurants, it's going to hurt your box beef movement and meat sales, even though they did strip out all the shelves there right before the storm hit. But mainly in your hotel and restaurant markets where they consume a lot of your higher quality beef right there, they're not going to be consuming nearly as much of it, and box beef took a dive this week. Maybe not just because of that, but it didn't help any. But box beef levels around $8 lower for the week after they hit almost record levels last week. The fed cattle market was steady to $2 lower in the 5 areas, 126 to 127 live, 195, 197 on a dress basis. Regional weighted averages this week in the north central states, 8 to 900 pound steer cost you 143.30 this week compared to 144.44 last week and 138.32 a year ago. In the south central states, southern plains, 7 to 800 pound steer cost you 143.64 compared to 144.31 last week and 139.46 a year ago. And down in the southeast, they were higher, 5 to 600 pound steer on order, 145.15 compared to 140.04 last week and 128.45 a year ago. That wraps up your feeder market summary for this week. Check out our website for more market information at marketnews.usda.gov and from the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri. We'll talk to you next week.